Welcome everybody to another edition of TEW 2020 as we're continuing the WCW 2001 series heading towards Halloween Havoc 2003. And again, another quick plug for the 2003 Mayhem Tournament Pick'em. Remember, if you do the Pick'em and win, I have a variety of prizes for the top 3 people in the Pick'em as long as we get enough entries. Going from being able to book a match on the January pay-per-view, a title match on a Nitro, dev signings, pushes and de-pushes, and, other fun stuff. Again, all the information is included with the post down below, along with a link to the site here. And again, you can sign up on the page, and if you, don't want to use, if you want to use a throwaway email, just include any sort of like Reddit username or some other way to contact you in the name of the predictions. Even if we don't get enough predictions, I'm still going to give whoever signs up some sort of prize. It might not be the full thing, but hopefully, again, hopefully people are just waiting till the end, until they sort of see who's getting pushed as we get moved towards. But again, the basics thing is today, which is Monday, will be the last show, will be the go home show for Havoc. Then Friday will be Havoc. Then we'll have the weekend, and then Monday will start November, and of course the actual Mayhem tournament. So you have until basically next Monday to get your predictions in, and if this want to be a fun thing, see who you want to win, maybe you'll get lucky, or decide who you want to win. But anyway, that's it for now. But let's get to the actual show. So again, it's time for Nitro, a go home show for Havoc, live at the Los Angeles, Louisiana Century Tel Center in Bossier City, Louisiana, which I think is a suburb of like Baton Rouge. Off the top of my head, might be wrong there. If you're from there, let me know. But regardless, anyway, we start with our pre-show match, showing a terrible pre-show match. Lestat, Shawn Stasiak, and Ilya Skipper defeated Blitzkrieg, Scott Taylor, and Tajiri in 13:58 when Skipper pinned Tajiri with the overdrive. This gets a 65, Tajiri gets a 62, Scott Taylor gets a 51, Blitzkrieg gets a 52, Ilya Skipper gets a 46, Shawn Stasiak gets a 58, and Lestat gets a 66. Again, get some people on the show who don't have any matches, some in-ring time, and there we go. But yeah, solid match. Not like quite like we were having those stretch of 6-mans where basically they are some better than the matches on the show, but I'm actually being able to push those people, so they're actually on Nitro. Regardless, let's get on to the main show. So we actually start out differently. So instead of a beginning promo, we start with basically the announcers putting over the big main event tonight as a final Havoc build, as it's Goldberg and Booker T teaming up one more time to take on the darkness of Macias and Morningstar, and this gets a 75. And they go, we're thrown through our ring for our opening match, which is Silver City Rollers versus Dustin Rhodes and Conan, and basically in a poor match, the Silver City Rollers drew with Dustin Rhodes and Conan when the match basically descended into chaos. This gets a 64, so back and forth match, and sort of the undercard feud between these two, between the Helms Legacy, the tag team, and of course the little mini old school stable of Rhodes and Conan continues as basically just chairs, everything brawls, and the ref just throws it out. Cash gets a 72 because he's really good. Reno gets a 60, Conan gets a 57, Rhodes gets a 65, and yeah. And there we go. 64 overall, and then we move. So basically what happens here is, descends in chaos. Gigantes comes out, and so it's a 3-on-2 beatdown when out of nowhere, some very familiar sirens hit, and out comes Scott Steiner. And he starts throwing people around, but it's not who you think. It's actually first, Cash takes a huge bump. Reno takes a big bump, and then there's between Gigantes, and Steiner actually closes on Gigantes over the top. Gigantes lands on his feet, and there's a stare down as Rhodes and Conan get up, and there we go. So this gets a 61, and we have a turn, and yeah. So Steiner is officially a face, and, we sort of go to commercial on that, and we come back. We come back to Scott Steiner, and basically Scott Steiner cuts a promo basically saying, he's been hearing that bitch, Helms, saying he's the greatest U.S. champion of all time. Well, Helms has that big dumb son of a bitch as backup, so he decided to show up, kick some ass, and, if Shane Helms doesn't lose to a pint-sized punk like Ray Jr., he'll be coming for that U.S. title, but first, he'll team up with these guys to take up, take on the Helms Legacy if they've got the balls. So, again, this is sort of set up, Steiner is a babyface, just for TEW 21 reasons, but he's still basically an asshole. He's just an asshole who's going after Gigantes at the moment. So let's get the 68, solid stuff, and there we go. Then we go, then we basically, go from here to basically cut to backstage again, where the Horsemen are here, and, it's a 90 promo. It starts out with, basically, Ric Flair again, patting Jared Douglas on the back for taking out Palumbo. He reminds Palumbo that, if he shows up to Halloween Havoc, after the beatdown he's going to get tonight again, that, that he's going to lose the match. And, he's been watching Stacy on TV, and she's looking mighty fine. And once again, she might want to ride on Space Mountain. because it's still the oldest ride and longest line. Woo! And after he takes out Palumbo, he'll be rising back up to the top once again. Canyon says nobody's better than Canyon, and RVD may be upset about what happened before, but this just proves once he beats him, there's nothing WCW officials will do except actually give him a world title shot that he's deserved for months upon months. Really solid promo, gets a 90, everybody's over, and there we go. So, move on to our next segment, which is a quick segment with the rest of the Helms legacy. Helms basically brushes off Steiner, says, he's a legend killer, and he'll take out Steiner. They were on, they didn't run across each other because Scott Steiner was busy with his own things. But, if he wants to get super kicked just like his past buddies Sting and Ric Flair, Sting and DDP, he'll do that too. But, at Havoc, he's happy to have a Halloween, God. Well, I'll book it later because my computer's being wacky. But anyway, at Havoc, it'll be a 6-man tag match where it'll be Gigantes, Reno, and Cash taking on Steiner, Conan, and Dustin Rhodes. So this gets a 74, really solid stuff. And then we go back into the ring for a match, basically a preview match of not only the London and Jason Jett versus AMW match at Halloween Havoc, which I might have announced. If I'm not, well, it's happening, but she's sure to be able to figure out on your own. We also have a book a couple weeks, and of course the Angel Fox Gail Kim thing. So in About That had decent wrestling, but didn't have much heat. Paul London and Angel Fox defeated Gail Kim and James Storm. When in 9/38, when Paul London defeated James Storm with London Calling, this gets a 67. Angel Fox gets a 58. Paul London gets a 73, James Storm gets a 66, and Gail Kim gets a 66. So this was actually a really solid match. So back and forth match, women and men tag in. But again, London's able to hit the big London Calling on James Storm as the women brawl, and this gets a 67. Good stuff. And then, of course, post-match, we've got London Fox celebrating to get a 60. So we're backstage again, where Palumbo, Air Raid, and Hart Legacy are all backstage. Palumbo thanks them for being backup for them tonight versus Flair, Judd, and Douglas. Even though they're competing, and they're like, basically they say, Palumbo's helped them out, at backstage, so it's only fair that they helped him tonight against the Horsemen, and plus, both, Air Raid, remind, Humbles they've had their own run-ins with the Horsemen before, so they're always happy to, take somebody who wants to hold this new era down, and of course Hart Legacy are always ready for a fight. So this gets 77, perfectly solid promo, continues the push, and continues the push for that, Hart Legacy and Air Raid have a big tag match at Halloween Havoc for the titles. And there you go. Of course, not all these guys are good promos yet, but still gets a 77. And then Ray Jr. cuts a quick promo. He first says to Steiner, well, he's happy that Steiner's taking the fight to the Nation Helms. He's not some punk. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world. So if Steiner still wants to, fight him after he's the U.S. champion, so be it. But, he's focused on Shane Helms. Shane Helms talks about he's the greatest United States champion of all 10. Well, buddy, Holmes, I was U.S. champion, many world champion, and I never had to have backup to win matches. So at Halloween Havoc, for one more time we fight, and this time I'm a legend that you can't kill. 70, solid promo, because Ray Jr. is not exactly the biggest promo guy, but there you go. And then, in a decent match, so basically to preview the big tag match coming up at the Havoc, Lance Storm and Mike Awesome have a match, and it's never it's basically Storm trying to keep down Awesome at the match, but Awesome eventually powers out, and Awesome tosses Storm from the ring, immediately comes out, and it's a big old brawl, and he double count out. So that's it, gets a 71. Basically just Storm working holds, and then Awesome eventually powering out, and tossing him over the top rope easily, but Storm lands on his feet because he's Lance Storm, and then Awesome comes out, and it's a big old brawl. So this is a 550, and this gets a 71 overall. Storm gets a 66, my Awesome gets a 69, and then the real fun begins, as first, Kidman comes out, and it looks like he's going to go after Storm, but then O'Hare comes out to save Storm, and it's a big old brawl. Where basically Storm and Awesome continue to fight each other while Kidman, O'Hare goes after Kidman, and the fight is on. So this gets an 81, and there you go. Just building up, and this was like the top of the hour thing, so it's sort of built together like this is actually a big tag match, because basically because it's O'Hare and Kidman, not so much Storm and Awesome, but their little tag team breakup feud is continuing. So good stuff as we continue on. Booker and Goldberg are backstage. This gets an 83. They basically, put over that, this is the end game. Last month at Fall Brawl, they defeated did pull in a in the War Games match, including Booker making Morningstar surrender, but the fight isn't over yet. Goldberg's going to take over Macias once and for all. Booker's going to take over. Booker's going to take care of Morningstar right in the middle of the ring, and then hopefully after Eddy Guerrero is world champion, one of them can take out Vampiro. And Goldberg just says, Macias, you're next. You've always been next this whole damn year. And Booker says, Secca, Morningstar, you think you got lucky a couple times? I'm a five-time world champion, and I'm going to kick your ass from one side of the arena to the other. 83, perfectly solid promo, and there you go. Then in a super match, we get an 86, which is insane for sort of the teams here. The Horsemen of Ric Flair, Jeff Jarrett, and Shane Douglas defeated Palumbo, AJ Styles, and Jack Evans in 1503 when Ric Flair pinned Jack Evans. Okay, it says by using underhanded tactics, because I guess they didn't. Yeah, sometimes TEW 2020 does not do this well. So what actually happens is basically AJ Styles goes for a big old I'm gonna say springboard forearm just because that's what he does now. It's Evans. Flair rolls up Evans and gets the quick pinfall victory over Evans. But before this, this is back and forth. Jordan Douglas and Styles and Evans are sort of the big match. Styles hits a big few moves. There's even a quick thing with Flair and Styles, as I'll just talk about. This is the past of World Championship Wrestling versus the future World Champion Wrestling. Palumbo also goes after Flair, but they basically stay apart to build up that heat for the pay-per-view. And overall gets an 86. Douglas gets an 84. Jarrett gets an 86. Which again, that's why I'm still pushing Jarrett and Douglas at this point in 2003, because they're still really good. Flair gets an 81. Jack Evans gets 74. AJ Styles is already at an 86. Goddamn. And Palumbo's at an 87. And then post-match, basically the Horsemen celebrate. We'll aerate it says argue early, but there's a push back and forth, and then they eventually decide to handshake, but Evans Teddy Hart points at the title belts. And then there's another stare down. So this gets 73 just sort of as the aftermath. Then we have a quick Jerry Noble promo with Ebony Sable as he goes over the fact that, it doesn't matter whether he faces whether it's Kaz or Jeff Hardy in the ring. He is the Redneck Rebel. He is the best, he is the best cruiserweight in this company. And Jeff Hardy can fall off things. Kaz can hard to make him tap out. But he has insurance and he has the skill to remain the cruiserweight champion. 56, solid promo. Not the best thing, but, sort of everything is set up for that match. And then, in a superb match, Eddy Guerrero defeats Alex Wright in 808 by pinfall the Frog Splash. So this is just a get Eddie over match, and I totally forgot to put the storyline on it, so not the end of the world, but still, get to 72, which is really good considering it's babyface without any sort of storyline. Probably would have got low 80s with the actual storyline connected, but, what can you do? Maybe if it was face versus heel. But, Alex Wright is not currently doing with this cycle, so there we go. And then, finally, we have Eddie, celebrating, but Vampiro comes out, and there's the big stare down, as Vampiro holds his title high, and Eddie, makes tugboat motions, as just put up for the fact, this is what Eddie has been trying to do for the, ever since he came to World Championship Wrestling, and, Vampiro has taken down every challenge to his belt since taking it from Canyon, but Eddie is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and, this is a challenge Vampiro has never really faced. So this gets an 80, and then it's main event time. So in a match that gets a freaking 94, because all these guys are really goddamn over. An exceptional match, Booker T and Bill Goldberg drew with Macias and Morningstar in 13:57, following a double countout. I mean, did you think you were going to get a finish here? Come on, folks. No clean finishes on the go-home show before the pay-per-view. So, this goes to a double countout. Everybody just begins fighting. Gets a 94, Goldberg gets a 96, Booker T gets a 90, Morningstar gets an 87, Macias gets a 92. Not a selling showing. I mean, it's Macias. I mean, you know who was selling. It was Morningstar, nobody goddamn else. And lack of psychology. Again, it's Goldberg, Macias, and yeah. And yeah. So there we go, 94. And again, now we have the final thing for the go-home show, which gets a 90. So basically, brawl to end the show. Eventually, Vampiro and Lestat come down to help Deadpool, which that leads Los Guerreros come out. And it's a big old brawl to end the show. And actually, the ending thing is Eddie hitting a huge dive on Vampiro while everybody else fights. And this gets a 90 to finish things out. So, we finish things out with a 90, and the show itself gets a 90. So, really good go-home show. Honestly, if I'm being a little critical of myself, I don't think I've done the best job of building up the world title match, but just because it's a tough thing to build up, because I mean, well, it's not really tough to build up. It's just not been like the top thing, surprisingly. Like, not basically because like Eddie is not quite that over yet. And he's still like really, 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 really over, but he's not like super over. But anyway, so before I look at Raw, because they had No Mercy, so let's go to World Wrestling Federation. Or World Wrestling Entertainment. I keep on forgetting that they're at this point. So for show history, that's WCW. I am really dumb. So for show history, No Mercy. Oh, right, I keep on forgetting I can do this. So, No Mercy, had a bunch of pre-show matches. We also had Terry defeating Elizabeth Love, who's the former Lizzie Valentine. We had Perry Saturn defeating Cheetah Kid, Jerry Lynn defeating Funaki, Big Show interview, Dean Malenko defeating Jake Roberts, Hardcore Holly defeating Crash Holly by Q as the Hollies explode, Will Rigo defeating Haku in a random match, Scott Hall and Bump and Ground, who is Val Venus and Rikishi, Val Venus and the Godfather, sorry, is it Rikishi? I keep on forgetting. It's Val Venus and Rikishi defeating Shane McMahon and Quick and Sexy in 82. We had Trish Stratus retaining the women's title, defeating Molly Holly, Lita, and Ivory. Then in the big match, we had Undertaker defeating Billy Gunn, which actually makes kind of booking sense because they're currently doing a Taker Angle feud, and Gunn is part of Team Angle with Kurt. And then we had Kane and Steve Austin defeating Big Boss Man and Kevin Nash. Okay, that makes less sense. Then we had Shawn Michaels defeating Riven by DQ in a random 100, just because that's what they can do. And then we had in the main event, in a big match, 97, Brock Lesnar defeated Chris Jericho, Triple H, and Kurt Angle. It doesn't say, but I'm guessing Lesnar pinned Jericho, because that's how the WF would book that, even in 2003. Triple H is currently hated by the whole McMahon family, because he cheated on Stephanie. And now, let's look at Raw. So Raw had Ivory winning a squash, Val Venus and the Radicals defeating Grandmaster Sexy and TNA. Okay, a Trish Stratus interview, a Teddy Long interview, an Edge interview, a Christian interview, Raven defeating Randy Orton. That's interesting. The Undertaker defeating Skull, Steve Austin winning a squash, Scott Hall defeating Kevin Nash in a cage match, which got an 85. And in the main event, Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels defeating the APA. Sort of a weird post-Mania Raw. So if we look at the news. Oh, okay, so Kevin Nash got he didn't actually get injured. If we look at our mail, no big mail. Johnny Ace doesn't think Paulin is tough enough. Okay. And, that's nothing. But to show you guys real quick, so let me just do this the workaround way. I might have already showed you this, but so just in case. So we had Saturday night last week. So we had oh, right, I think I did show you guys. But just as a reminder, the match the Saturday night that leads up to this, Halloween Havoc, is a Roman Legion promo starting things. Yang defeating Chaos. Ernest Miller is now on the phone, saying he doesn't know, he wasn't sick last week, that his plane ticket got canceled, interestingly. We had Halloween Havoc Control Center. We had Celine Cartier and Jordan Cole defeating Mischief and Ronnie Jonah up from our developmental. We had Ginger and Stasiak defeating Prince Nana and Chris Rambola, also up from our developmental, just in a squash win because I haven't been using them. Alex Wright in ring, then he was interrupted by Toro, and then Jonathan Toro defeating Alex Wright in a 63 to retain the World TV title. So there you go. But yeah, that's it. So again, to go over sort of our big matches for a Havoc, we have in the main event, Vampiro versus Eddy Guerrero for the world title. We have Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Shane Helm for the U.S. title, and sort of the ending of their feud. We have, in a big match, RVD versus Canyon. We have Bill Goldberg versus Macias and Booker T versus Morningstar in what they've been calling the endgame of the Deadpool feud versus WCW. Chuck Palumbo versus Ric Flair. Air Raid versus Hart Legacy for the World Tag Team titles. Gail Kim versus Angel Fox for the Women's World title. Kaz versus Hardy versus Noble for the Cruiserweight title. Sean Herbert and Lance Storm versus Mike Awesome and Billy Kidman, sort of the fallout from Storm and Awesome breaking up. of course, what was just announced, also, it's not here, but AMW versus Jet in London, and of course, Dustin Rhodes, Conan, and Scott Steiner versus Gigantes, Reno, and Cash. So I think that's a big, basically the Deadpool, the Deadpool Team WCW stuff coming to, well, what looks like an ending, the big world title match, and that honestly, I think that world tag title match will be really good, and Flair and Palumbo will probably be solid, and the rest of the stuff really builds storylines and builds people up. But again, as I said before, let's go ahead and sign up for the Mayhem tournament, pick'em, and just keep on watching the series. I continue to enjoy doing it, and I will continue doing it basically until I can't anymore. But close things out, as always, go ahead and give it a like if you're enjoying this. Comment below when you're enjoying and subscribe to the channel for lots of TEW 2020 content, including this, my MLW 2004 series, which is now in 2005, my WCW 1993 New York Berthoff series, my Women's Revolution 2010 series, and my beginning Cornellverse series where I'm doing the East Coast Wars, and lots of other stuff that might pop up. But that's it for now, so I'll talk to you later, and adios.